Yes. We are finally live. It has happened. What a journey we've had today. What a journey. Honestly, it's probably been the most stressful day of my life when it comes to this channel. But we have somehow managed to make it here. It's been like, to be honest, it's been a bit like the British pound after Liz Truss took over. It started off reasonably okay. It's gone down and up. We've had people gone, people sacked, people. It's been hilarious this evening on my mobile phone. But we are pleased to say that our stock is higher than ever because look at the people we have. 2 OGs, people that said they were going to be here, and another one who we've just dragged in out of the gutter. So cheers, Connor, for popping along and helping us out. We appreciate that. We've got a nice little foursome sitting here now. But our tutors, of course, we have Big Johnny K down the bottom there and Beth, our little letter from America coming over. So we are in what can only be described as a great situation. We've got loads to talk about, as you would expect, because it's a fans forum. And what I really love about this is that we're able to rekindle the actual format of a fans forum, which is where the fans get the chance to think about what it is they want to say. And we get to have a bit more of a conversation. So listen, you guys in the comments, smash stuff out there. I've got zero problem with going off script. This is quite literally your show. Talk about what it is you want to talk about. We'll answer everything. Pineapple on pizza, everything. It's all there. Nothing is taboo. So bring it on. We've got loads to chat about. We'll check how people are first, shall we? Quickly, John, you okay now?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Apologies, my fault. The show started late. I needed a shower, so apologies for that.
It's all right. As you can see by the hair, which is sort of going down the Bobby
Exactly.
Charlton route.
It's like this at the best of times anyway. It makes no difference. So.
And Beth, lovely to have you back. Thank you for joining us. You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having me back.
Well, it's our pleasure. Absolutely our pleasure. And Connor, of course, has arrived. You okay, mate?
Yeah. I feel all right. Yes. All good.
Okay, so translation, yes, Connor's fine. It's all good. Honestly. Right, so let's kick off because the conversation was all about the squad hierarchy, and it's very interesting because the hierarchy of the Manchester United squad has really sort of changed a bit, and we'll go in depth in a little bit about the 4 people, the leadership team that Marc Skinner has introduced. But I think really where I want to go with this is we spoke a lot about squad depth, people that were going to be starting, people that were not going to be starting. We've looked at the Conti Cup game, which was quite an interesting Conti Cup game. We managed to draw, didn't get the win on penalties. But I found it really interesting thinking about sort of players that have taken the top spot. So, for example, this weekend, I was quite surprised to see Lucy Staniforth sitting ahead of someone like, say, Hayley Ladd or even Vilderbo Risa. Both players who you thought might have potentially been there. There was no Jade Moore either starting the game. So I guess really, I just want to sort of run around and get your first opinions, your first thoughts on what you think about the team selection over the last few weeks and whether or not there's been any surprises or anything that sort of caught your eye, really. So we'll kick off with you, John, because you've had about an hour in the shower to think about what you're going to say today. So you should be
it was like 7 minutes or something, and I needed a shave beforehand. But anyway, but yeah, it was. But yeah, what were we saying? Oh yeah, so yeah, the changes are made. Well, I did say that I thought the Villa Conti Cup game. I was surprised by how many changes he made. I was on the preview for that show, and I mentioned you needed to keep momentum. We weren't going to play for another 2 weeks, so we had that full week off. It was important that we got off to a good start in the Conti Cup, and now because we lost on penalties, I'd still expect us to get through, but it wasn't ideal from my perspective. It should have made 4 or 5 changes for that game. As for the weekend, obviously Russo was injured, so we had to make a change there. But it is interesting, some of the decision, like you say, Sani starting on Saturday was a bit of a surprise, I thought. I would have thought maybe, well, probably A-Lab would have got in the team for that game. And obviously, but it's interesting that players like with Tungari is obviously the French captain. She's hardly played, really. She obviously played the Villa game, but did she come on as sub at West Ham? I can't remember. So it's interesting that she hasn't really been used as much as I would have thought. But obviously, maybe it's testament to the partnership at the back with Millie Turner and Tissier. But I've been surprised with some of the decisions and that. I think most of all, for the league teams anyway, he's picked sides which you wouldn't be surprised by. You would have expected Suni, Russo, Galton, things like that, and one of Paris or Garcia to start. Obviously, Zelen always starts. And overall, there's not been that much surprising, but obviously some players like Cohn have gone to another level. So, yeah, I do think mostly in the league, the team has been stable, but I think with the Cup game, it was interesting. He made so many changes.
For sure. And Beth, I've put up John's message here about Skinner thinking he doesn't need a CDM against Brighton, but he agrees. He thinks it's strange to have seen Lucy start in front of Vilda. But he says he thinks that's because Skinner doesn't rate Vilda. Your thoughts on that comment, and also your thoughts as we just asked John about the general choices that have been made of the starting 11s of the last few games.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I am a little, I guess, I'm not surprised, but I am surprised because, like everyone is saying, you need to have momentum, and the easiest way to have momentum if you don't have injuries is to stick with the same starting 11 if possible. Obviously, with some injuries, you're going to have to flip stuff around. Yeah, I think maybe Skinner did think that we didn't need a CDM. I'm someone that I kind of always would like a CDM in the midfield just to have that balance and that structure there. Hopefully he doesn't not rate Boarisa because she is a good player on the ball and she's smart, but it's possible that he doesn't. We don't know the inner workings of the team, or at least I don't, so it's very possible. But I'm hoping that he does, and he's just wanted to build minutes with her so that she, like if Tooney ever gets injured, she can slot right in, or if Staniforth can slot right in, and then Tooney down low, or Boarisa and an 8, whatever he thinks will work. But I am surprised Tunkara hasn't gotten any minutes at all, besides I think the Conti Cup she played, correct? Yeah, just like everybody was saying, she is the France captain, but maybe that's also because she's coming into a whole different country, whole different league. She might need a little bit more time, but you would think after, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 games, she might get at least some minutes. But maybe with some injuries, unfortunately, that look like are going to start happening, or at least have come up, she might get a game here or there, or at least a couple minutes in the last 15 or 10, and then build from there.
Absolutely. And I think that's possibly the biggest surprise I've seen so far is that we haven't seen Tunkara yet, which makes us think there's something more to it. I know that she'd had a slight injury of some sort, it seemed. I think she had a problem with her wrist at some point. But yeah, it's very interesting to see, and there's lots of people that said that. Kind of just popping over to you with regards to that, because we've had a few opinions. So obviously we had this one from TJ where he thought that Stani played pretty well. And then, of course, we mentioned about Tunkara. He actually thinks that if Tunkara does come in and play well, then we may not see Thor anymore. He also agreed that there has been a good performance there from Stani. So just before you answer your question, sup there, nice to see you, mate. But yes, Connor, what's your thoughts on the general decisions that he's made so far, and also what we were just talking about there with Stani and Tunkara?
Tunkara is a little bit interesting, especially because at the weekend Thor came on instead. Now, I know people will say, oh, she came on, I think it was for Honor. Obviously, later on, Thor's played right back. Well, Maya was still on the pitch. Why not put Tunkara in the middle and put Maya at right back? That would have been the more obvious one. And that's why when we talk about the kind of the hierarchy of the squad, I'm a bit confused as to who's where. I was trying to think about this when I, kind of put in this, when me and you, Barry, were talking about this show. I was thinking who actually is ahead of who, because you'd think, with the new signings have come in, hit the ground running. Certainly a lot of pretty much all of them that have played, but Tunkara seems to have not had the favourable option in the league. Saying that, we haven't conceded a goal in the league, so why would you change your defensive line when you've not conceded yet? So I guess, there's no need at the moment to bring her in, unfortunately, as that is. Stanley was an interesting one. Obviously, the talk about maybe not needing a CDM for Brighton. To be honest, Zellum was playing quite deep against Brighton anyway. She was effectively the defensive midfielder, so it kind of, we saw last season Zellum dropping into that position. She played centre back when we needed to. So maybe Skinner's moulding her into that position. Maybe that's what we're starting to see, that Zellum's going to be the one that drops back, and then you have your two kind of players ahead of that. I'm not too sure. Not seen too much rotation, but like I said, we've not conceded in the league, so we're not going to see that much anyway, because you don't change. For me, this is not the season for Skinner to be experimenting. We've got a massive opportunity to get into the top three with what's happening over at City, Arsenal. Obviously, with Williamson out now, they're not going to be as strong. City with obviously what's happening with Emma Hayes, and they haven't got off to it. They look good, but they've not got off to the best. We've got a real chance this year, so I don't think we should be experimenting with players just because we want to see certain players play.
It's one of those really hard things, though, isn't it? Because by the very nature of the fact we brought in so many players, you are going to have to experiment a little bit to see which ones sort of work with which, I suppose. But you're absolutely right. There's some players there we do need to think about as to whether or not long term they're going to provide much. So you mentioned the hierarchy. Let's start at the top, shall we? The leadership team. We mentioned this, I think, on a fans forum ago. People had a go at their guesses as to who might be the four people who are large and in charge at Manchester United Women's. And, of course, not huge surprises of the first name that was mentioned, Katie Zellum. You'd 100% expect her to be in the leadership team because, let's be honest, why would you not have your captain? That would be stupid, surely. So, common sense there. But the interesting thing I think we've got there is a bit of a 50-50 split, because the other three people, you've got Aoife Mannion, Hayley Ladd, and Honor Battier. And within that, what you've got is two players who I think are amongst the first names on the team sheet, in Katie and Honor. In Hayley, you've got one who's sort of, should we say, one of the hokey cokey players, in, out, shake it all about, for sure. And of course, Aoife Mannion, who at the moment is obviously trying to come back from her injury, but will probably find it difficult after she comes back, because she's got to try and knock Maya Tissier out of the centre-back position. She's got to try and knock Millie Turner out. Tunkara might have already got us, not literally, it's not like the women's boxing the other night, not knock them out that way, but knock them out of the place. Not condoning violence here. But there's potentially three other people that are in front of her for that centre-back spot. So that could be really quite tricky. What's your thoughts on that leadership team? Because Mark says that he thinks it's a really balanced leadership team that gives every player in the team a voice. What's your thoughts on that, Mr. Commode?
That's interesting, the thought, because you're right, we did a go. That's it. I don't think any of us said, hey, lad, be in it. I think maybe one person might have said Mannion. Obviously, Zelva and Ona, when you already. I think it's interesting. Like you say, hey, lad, she's obviously quite a gritty type of player, so in many ways it might make sense to have a player with that gut and determination in there. Mannion is interesting, like you say, because when she came in, she was a regular starter centre-half, and if it wasn't for injury, she would have played through there for the rest of the season. So it's an interesting one, but obviously now with strength in that area, is she a guaranteed starter? It's interesting. Skinner says it gives everyone the team a voice and all that, but in many ways, but we haven't got a forward player in that group, have we? We haven't got like a Tsuni or a Russo or a Paris or a Galton there, which I find interesting. So it's obviously about. I mean, we don't know all the decisions that are made in that group to raise. So I'm sure they'll raise things off the pitch as well as on it. But I think it's interesting when you'll obviously do tactical things as well, see what benefits the team and all that. And it's interesting that you don't have a forward player in that. And I think it might be something to miss potentially, because because clearly we're solid at the back. That's clear to see, and that's probably why we don't tend to concede that many usually, and maybe that's why the leadership group. But in terms of going forwards, we don't always score goals in every game, so maybe there might be missing link that there isn't a forward player in there potentially. But if it works, it works.
Interesting stuff. I'm afraid I'm going to have to go into teacher mode for a second. You've not been listening, have you, TJ? You've not been paying attention to the board. You weren't paying attention to what I was saying. And as a result, we look a bit silly now, don't we? Because you're sitting there talking to your friends. You're not listening to what's going on. And as a result, you repeated exactly what I just said, haven't you? So I'm going to give you a 50-50 here. 50% of you has been a little bit silly because we're not just speaking of IFA. We're speaking of the leadership team. However, you have reminded me that we do need to say thank you to Jamie Spencer for once again providing some fantastic content for our channel. Again, pop off to his website. Well, not his website. I don't think he owns it, but he certainly writes for it, which is 90 minutes. He's pretty good. And find him on Twitter. He's an amazing source of information. He's working really hard to get everything for Man United women in one place. So by all means, go. But yes, naughty. Go and sit in the corner and think about what you've done. Meanwhile, we'll go back to Beth. And again, yes, we are talking about the 4 leaders, as mentioned by the meeting. And yes, what's your thought on those 4 people, Beth? Katie Zellamy for Man and Hayley Ladd on a Batier. Do you agree with John? Do you think we need forward players, or is he just chatting rubbish as usual?
I don't disagree. But I also I also don't know how. Maybe I'm trying to think of a forward player. Maybe Leah Galton. That's somebody that I think could be in. But then who do you take out? And I only mean that by we don't know exactly what their different leadership styles are like. I know Mark, I believe, said that Katie Zellum is more of a leader by example, and I agree with that. She's wonderful on the ball. She's smart. She can make passes that sometimes, we probably don't see until she actually makes them. So that's wonderful. Well, yeah, I could see maybe. I don't disagree. But I also don't know who I would take out, because you also don't want to take away, I don't know if, oh God, I can't say her name. The one who's injured. You know who I'm talking about. Yeah, thank you. I know if she was part of the leadership group before, I don't know. I wasn't digging into that a couple years ago or even last year. You don't want to take it away from her just because she's injured. So it's kind of tough. I don't disagree, but I also don't know who I would take out either. And that's my answer.
I think it's a trust thing as well, because I've just checked. So Hayley Ladd and Mannion were both at Birmingham with Mark. So, they know Mark from a previous club. So they've clearly got the relationship with Mark already. Zellum speaks for itself. Obviously, she's captain. We saw Mannion as kind of almost vice captain last season when Zellum wasn't playing. Mannion would get it. An honour, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think that's probably some kind of bargaining thing from United to try and get her to stay. It's probably something going, well, we can give you this leadership role. We can give you this. We can also give you this and give you a little bit. I think that's probably what's going on with her, because as John Fry has put in the comments, If Honor doesn't speak, how much should be a leader in the dressing room? I don't think this group is leaders in the dressing room. I don't think these four stand up at the start and they do all the orders. I purely think it's a trust thing between the squad, the management, whoever else gets involved. Obviously, Polly now gets involved, and and all kinds of things there. So I think with Honor, it's definitely a bargaining thing. It's probably something, like I said, they've gone to her and said, we can offer you this at the club, we can offer you this, and so on. Zellum speaks for itself, and the other two I can only think of, they're good players, obviously both of them, but I just think because they've worked with Marc in the past, that's probably why that trust is already there with those two players. So there's a lot of shouts. Someone's just mentioned Mary Earps. Yeah, potentially. It depends what he's after. We don't know what this group is. We don't know what it's for. It's just let's say for me, it's just a trust group. It's just your kind of middle people between the squad and the management staff.
I've got to be honest, I thought it was his pub quiz team. Just the four people that come and sit with him on the pub quiz.
Aoife's pretty bright, in fairness to her, so I don't know.
I've heard of him. He's had all the fashion advice and all that sort of jazz.
Ona comes across as the type where she can speak a few languages. Maybe it's English, isn't that good? But maybe she can speak Portuguese, French, that kind of thing. So
maybe. But I actually think what Beth said as well about the whole, it's how you lead by example, don't you? And she never gives anything other than 110% every single game. She's one of our. In fact, Charlie and I were talking about it last week. You could put her as a nomination for Player of the Match every single week. It's guaranteed. She's probably in the top four somewhere. So it's amazing, really. So let's turn down to our 7 new signings then, just before the last little bit of this squad hierarchy thing, because part of that is about people that have pushed in a little bit. We had 7 new signings, in case you've forgotten who they are. Let's run through them again. So we had Adriana Leon, Nikita Paris, Tunkara, Clinton, Garcia, Williams, Maya Tissier, and I'm going to count Millie Turner as well because she was gone for a fair amount of that season last season. So actually it feels like a new signing, Turner in there as well. Out of those 8 people, who do you think has managed to stake a real claim for a starting position is the first question. And number 2, Lucy Staniforth, Jade Moore, Vilda Borisa. They're the 3 players really now who you would say, but Martha Thomas as well, are players that are sort of, and Thor, perhaps on the periphery now. Maybe people who, and I don't say this lightly, but maybe people who could potentially be playing for their future at the football club because they need time to show that they can really help us. So out of those, the 8 new signings, 7 new signings in Millie, and those 5 people that I've just mentioned who are on the periphery, is there any there that you think are definite ins, definite ones we need to keep, or that might have staked a claim for the first team, but also any players that you think might potentially be struggling to hold down a place next year? So, John, we'll go to you.
Well, I think there's 3 guarantees starters, in my opinion. Based on the start of the season, obviously Millie Turner. Letitia has done very well, kept clean sheets. She's had a very good start, so she'll be down there. And I think Lucia Garcia as well. She's done well off the wing, and that we spoke about earlier. I personally think that Spanish connection down the right wing will be an effective one. Paris, I think, will interchange with Lucia. There might be the odd game they played together, like on the weekend, but that was due to Russo being injured. So it might be that they interchange and that throughout the season. So I think Paris will be there or thereabouts. Obviously, Clinton's not gone. I don't think she's had a minute. I don't think. Obviously, Rachel Williams has had injury. She obviously, it's Charlie's Glee came on at weekend. I think she'll play a bit part role personally, and I think that she's more there for experience and to help some of the younger players personally rather than playing time, in my opinion. But I think she'll probably get games like the Conti Cup and that. I think Leon might potentially be the one to be the backup to Ruth. So I think Martha Thomas possibly a place might be on the line potentially if because obviously she didn't have the best game on Sunday. Leon came on and scored, and it wouldn't surprise me if Leon became the main backup for Russo this season. I think I've covered all 7, haven't I? But yeah, so there you go.
Good job, Beth. Follow that.
Can I just say I agree
Good
with
question.
everything he says and then go on
Stop
with that?
agreeing with John. He's going to end up with a really big head up the entire screen. It now.
But he's right.
You're going to have to swap these two around. Go to Beth before you go to John next time, I think.
What is going on here? So, but I mean, he's mentioned those.
You asked me to do my homework, Gary.
The 5 that we mentioned, Thor, Martha Thomas, Bilderberg Research, and Jade Moore. Who out of those 5 do you think is most likely to still be here next year?
Well, my hope is Borisa. I still want to see Martha Thomas maybe for one more year. See if something this year was just amiss with possibly the pressure for trying to qualify for the World Cup. I don't know. I'm just throwing something out there. I don't want to be harsh, but those are really the only 2 that, especially Borisa, I want to see her stay. But other than that, I mean, we have the depth now, and we know what style and type of player Skinner's going to want to bring in. So if he keeps bringing in the quality that he brought in for this year, and it doesn't have to be like first-team players, they can totally be backups and still have a good quality. I think that's probably about it, unfortunately.
Okay. And so out of the 7... The new
I've just realised I got Sunkara, didn't I?
She
stayed.
I think
John,
Sunkara just confirmed.
Sorry, John.
Beth, I'll let you speak about Sunkara then.
But yeah, out of those 7, I'm going to change the question slightly for you. Who out of those 7 do you think is the least likely to be here next at the end of their contract? So who's least likely to get their contract renewed? Which one?
Oh, man. If the back line stays the way it does, possibly Tunkara, but we haven't even seen her play yet, so I can't say yes or no for her. Oh, man.
So what do you think of Tunkara? Seeing as how John just outrageously missed her. It's like there was 12 people that I mentioned. It's unfair that you managed to miss one.
You mentioned Millie as a new signing. So have I covered all 8? I can't remember. Turner's going to replace Tunkara.
So yeah, so what are your Tunkara then?
I'm joking, but no. I think Tunkara is safe, though, isn't it?
And your thoughts, Ben?
Yeah, I think Tunkara.
Tunkara?
She's probably currently, only because of the starting 11 being the way it is and the momentum that we have, she's probably number 3 center back at the moment. So I would have liked to seen her come into the last game at the end, like everybody was saying, and move Tissier over to the right. Or left. No, it's the right. It's the right. Sorry, I'm watching on TV. The sides are hard to tell sometimes, but would have liked to seen her play in there. But I've seen her play for France, and she's really good. So I think she'll stay, and I like her as a player. But I'm surprised she hasn't been playing. We'll put it that way.
TJ, I can't believe you've put this, because that's literally what I'm here for. I've not put it for any reason other than to promote chaos and hilarity. And that's why there's 15 people watching us live, I would hope, because we've gone absolutely mad.
The House of Fun, Barry.
It is the house of fun. Welcome, as Madness would say.
Yes.
And I'd like to point out that it's a very difficult job as a host. It really is tricky, especially when you set a question and then they answer it so thoroughly. We'll give you the benefit of the doubt, John, so brilliantly that basically the next person goes, nah, what he said. So as a result, it calls you up to question somewhat. So I'd like to point out, I'd like all 7 of those people to stay, and I'm sure that's the view of everybody on this panel. But you've got to start changing it up a bit and having a few conversations about different things. So I don't think for 1 minute any of us are suggesting that any of these players who have played less than 4 games are going to go anywhere. Let's just put that one out there, because you know what people are like, jumping on things. Good God, what would we want? Connor, your thoughts on everything that's been said so far? Bring some seriousness to this madhouse.
I was going to say, I was just about ready to clip you up there and say Barry wants new signings gone already after 4 games or something like that. That's a tweet right there. Yeah.
And they're all useless.
Quote Barry.
Nobody would believe you, Connor. Nobody would believe you. I'm just positive it's impossible. No way has he said that.
I can't remember what the original question was now, but yeah, when you're talking about the 7 new signs, who can, kind of, you mentioned the 5 players there. To be honest, the only ones I agree with what Beth said. The only ones I really have a kind of a thought for that I think, they need to try and fight, and really I'd like them to fight against the new signs that have come in for their place in the squad is Bo Reeser and Thomas. I think when you're looking at the others, this sounds really harsh, if they moved on, I don't think too many fans would be too kind of upset over that. Lanzell's point about Bo Reese's contract, I don't actually know when it runs out, but she'd probably stay, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see a loan deal in January, put it that way. So that might be an option for her. And it's upsetting for me because I actually think Bo Reeser is actually, I'm going to get slaughtered for saying this. I think technically Bo Reeser is our best midfielder, but it's clear for whatever reason, it's not quite worked at United for a full potential just yet. But yeah,
that was said as well.
What's he put there? I think Aoife signs a new contract. Maybe, but again, like I said at the start of the show, we've not conceded yet. Obviously, if we go to Chelsea and beat them, don't concede or concede 1, you can't shape up that back line, can you? So Aoife then drops to the 3rd or 4th choice centre back. So it's a tough one. I can't see it going. I can't see any of these players going. Thor's probably the one that's closest to the exit, I would expect now. But again, she's getting minutes. I think the whole point around this conversation is the new signings have come in and hit the ground running. Myers come in, hit the ground running. Leon's come in, already scored. Paris has already scored. Garcia's already scored. Williams looked good when she came on. Millie Turner's come back and, like you said, pretty much a new signing. She looks solid already. So you've got players there. Clinton's not even coming to the side yet, really. Saw a bit of her in pre-season and she looked good as well. I've missed a player. Who have I missed? Maya?
Is it Tunkara again?
Yeah, it is. Do you know what
He's fallen off his chair.
Do you know what it is, Barry? It was you, because you threw Millie Turner into the conversation. And
it's bad. It's bad because there was an Instagram post I saw earlier today where it's on the bridge outside Salford Keys. In the back is the Larry Theatre, and that's where my wedding reception was. And I completely forgot about it.
So no, I think Tunkara might be the one that she'll be the next one, I think, that could push her way into the starting 11. But like I said, it won't be until that defence has a collapse, because there's no reason, like I said at the start of the show, there's no reason to change it now, because it's winning, so that you don't change it. The attacking line, you can afford to make slight changes because you can rotate attackers quite easily. Defence, you want a solid back 5 week in, week out.
Now, I've got to be honest, I think I've worked out what's happened. So we were saying Tunkara hasn't played much, and this is what happens. I reckon, you could replace it. So, I'll be Marc Skinner, Connor's Martin Ho. Beth, you two can be part of the team as well. Anyway, but basically what we do is we all sit there, we talk about who's going to... we talk about who is going to start. We all pick the team, and then we're on the bus on the way up there. We go, we forgot about Tunkara. And that's what's happened. They've already done it. I forgot about Tunkara. So clearly this is what's happening. So I'm going to make a sign for the next match.
So Barry, you decide to man, me, and the team.
Tunkara in. That's what we're going to go. Hashtag Tunkara in, or remember Tunkara.
Oh,
So, yeah.
dear.
Anyway, there we go.
I feel that I'll be cheering her on when she's on.
We lots about the team, which is brilliant. I just want to bring in Ellie's question here because this moves on to John's next point. Ellie says, panel, if we win comfortably now till Chelsea, are we confident going into the big game against Chelsea? So with that question in mind, John, I can't believe I'm going to say this. We haven't said this in a fans forum for ages. John, would you like to introduce your topic?
Oh, yes, with honour, Barry. It's an honour and a privilege. But yeah, so basically the topic I want to cover, because obviously we've got 3 games away from home in a week now, starting on Sunday. So my point I wanted to make was in regards to the league, the top 3 potentially, where we've been going wrong. As we know, we won our home games 4-0. Both of them. Last season, it wasn't our home form, which was bad. We were winning games comfortably at home regularly. It was our away form mostly that cost us. Now, obviously, this season we beat West Ham 2-0 when we drew the game late on last season. But in the Conference Cup game, albeit it was a weakened lineup, we obviously got a draw, which we also drew last season. And when you look at particularly the next 3 fixtures in particular, obviously we won at Leicester last season, you would expect us to win on Sunday. But then the next 2 were obviously Durham and Everton. And this is a test for the team, I think, because if you want to get into the top 3, you have to start winning games consistently away from home. And the other big factor in those games last season was we were going 1 up but not getting the second one, which would have possibly won us the game. And then I allowed teams like Tottenham, Arsenal, Everton, West Ham, teams like that. I think we drew 5 or 6 away from home last season, and this is where we got to be more clinical there. We need to start winning on the road. If you go 1-0 up, you start playing nil, and that's another pattern. We start games relatively well. Most of our goals tend to be in the first half, and we sometimes tie a little bit in the second half, and this is where I think if we are going to compete and get in the top 3, we have to be more of a team away from home, and also in the second half as well, be more clinical, and hopefully then we'll get in the top 3. So yeah, that's my topic.
Very good. It's interesting you mentioned that. I just want to not fact check, but mention a couple of things. So I did a brief bit of research in the 20 minutes that I was afforded to try and pull this show back together. I looked at our form last season. We won 12, drew 6, lost 4. 2 of the games that we lost that I could recall was 1-0 against City, 4-2 against Chelsea. They were both away games. And we had the 6-1 defeat against Chelsea, but that was a home game. Out of the draws, I could only find 3 immediately. We had West Ham and Villa. They were both away. Obviously, Spurs away as well is one that I remember because I was there. And then there was the draw against City as well, which was at home. So that's 4 games.
And Arsenal as well. Arsenal.
That was away.
And the other one was, so you mentioned Tottenham, Everton.
Everton, that's it. So yeah, 5 that we drew away from home then. So your point is actually a very good one because it seems like the games that we lost, the bulk of them were away from home.
And that's the other thing, because if you factor in, you play 22 league games, you play 11 away. We drew 5 away and lost 2, which meant we only won 4.
Absolutely. So Connor's just pumped a question into the chat, so he's going to hype that question if you can't read it. But he's also going to talk about what John's just spoken about. So go for it. What's your thoughts on what John's saying? And please don't say I agree with everything he said. Just about the last thing I can take.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to see whether people think we are actually going to get 3 wins on the road because on paper it doesn't look too bad. Leicester, Durham, Everton. You know, you got a championship side, bottom of the league, and Everton are not looking exceptional. So you've got 3 teams there on paper you'd expect us to beat. But as you've just said, our away from last season, we struggled at Durham away last year. We drew to Everton away last year. We're pretty comfortable against Leicester. It's probably the one I'm most comfortable about. But when you've got those 3 games in a week, this is where it goes back to the first point. We're going to see rotation because we've got to, especially on Durham's pitch. I think people forget Durham don't play on a normal grass pitch. They've got some artificial, pitch up there. And I remember our players coming off last time because you are so close to the pitch. You have a little bit of a chat with them and things like that. And they were you could see it on the the kind of muscle injuries that potentially you could get there. So I'm hoping we come out of that with no injuries. So I expect us to get 3, but I actually don't think we will. I think we're going to beat Durham on penalties. Now, obviously, that's a victory, but I don't think we'll get the win in 90, is what I'm saying there. But in what you're saying, in what John's saying, yeah, that's the big thing. Our home form is pretty decent. Obviously, we lost to Chelsea, Arsenal, and drew to City at home last season.
But the rest.
But exactly, so it's not our home form that was the issue. It was those away. And Barry, you reminded me of some awful aways. Spurs away was horrible. West Ham away was the worst because that was so late in the game. Villa away, that 0-0 draw. Everton away, it was a late goal. Just all of those were just horrific, and I don't want to go through that again this season. So yes, that's the one thing this season. We were chatting backstage about Skinner and about the players and all kinds of things that can go right or wrong this season. Away form has got to be the one. But I don't think this Durham game, it's frustrating that it's in the place that it is because there's so many international breaks. You could have it somewhere else. It's a bit annoying that it's sandwiched between 2 other league away games which are equally as important.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Absolutely. And you couldn't be more right, Anton. Very, very, especially when you water it. Very much so. Very much so. So Beth, we've thrown you in after 2 people here, so we are really testing your powers now. But yeah, 3 big games coming up. One of them in the Conti Cup, 2 league games: Leicester, Everton. We were talking backstage. We said, and these are the games in the build up to Chelsea that really are the games. If we harbouring any thoughts of the top 3, which Skinner has certainly mentioned, these are the games we sort of do have to win. I mean, Durham left terms of the league, obviously, because it's not a league game, but if we want trophies, we've got to get through the Conti Cup. Those other 2 games, Leicester, Everton, big or not? What's your thoughts?
They're relatively big. They're big in the fact that we need to win them. Like everybody's saying, like 3 points are bust against them. Durham, I kind of see it as a need to win for the rotation people that are coming in, kind of in that way, to get them to have confidence for when they come into the first side, like late on in the game in the second half. I think that might be actually part of the issue, is that when they may not have the best confidence yet, and the Conti Cup, especially when we rotate, is going to give them. So Durham, like everybody's saying, is going to be a little iffy with I like the plastic pitch. That's perfect way to describe it. Granted, I haven't seen it in person. I can't, but I know those are horrible to play on. They hurt. The burns are horrible. And I can imagine like slide tackling people are trying to and coming up with like just an entire leg burn, basically. But I think they're all need to win. Absolutely. Especially going up, like everybody was saying, going into the Chelsea game to have that confidence. And Durham, yeah, it is a need to win game in a sense, because those people, the people that are coming in, they'll gain confidence from that. And they'll gain confidence, hopefully, no injuries as well. Hopefully. But we'll see.
Absolutely. And that is the hope. And speaking of injuries, we had the update from Skinner. Leslie Russo, 2 or 3 weeks until she trains, really. So we shouldn't expect to see her. I mean, that really takes us through past Chelsea. So potentially she might not be available for that big game against Chelsea, which is We'll leave that one there. Grace Clinton, probably longer, so we're not going to see her just yet. Hannah was taken off as a precaution, so it sounds like we should expect to see her. And Honor has undergone the concussion testing, and if she is available, then she will play. So, some very interesting points there. I'm just popping this one up because I like the irony of the fact that you're reminding yourself. So that was it, really. I've done nothing other than click a button and comment and I'll put it up. So there we go. John, your thoughts?
Well, if you don't go through pain, you'll never experience gain. That's the attitude I go with. What were you saying? Sorry.
There we go. Sorry, James. All the way through what Beth was saying there, I'm just sitting there thinking, I can't wait to put that out. That's going to be hilarious. It's the type of thing that goes through my head. Is that Beth is going to really have some independent thought going on right now, which is going to be awesome. Because I'm actually going to give her an award. And that is the award for what I think is the best thought through question on a fans forum ever. Because genuinely, the minute I heard it, I went, that's really good. That's nice to have somebody come on and say something like that. We often talk about lots of mundane things here on the fans forum. But this one, I think, is brilliant. And it's brilliant because it comes from someone who I think is probably better placed to discuss this than many others. So I'm not going to say much more. But Beth, why don't you let us know what's on your mind? Pretend we're Facebook and type it in, or say it out loud would probably be better.
Yeah. So my topic is, I don't think Marc Skinner is getting the credit he deserves with the style of play and the players that him and his coaching staff have brought in. And so top three, it also does help that Chelsea and City and Arsenal at the moment are kind of going through a rough patch. But even before that, we had optimism, and all the players that came in are part of that optimism to get top three and to get Champions League football. And I think a lot of the hate, as I was telling Connor and Barry before the show, a lot of the hate comes from a whole different system, a whole different style of bringing players in, a whole different style of play in the NWSL in the States. Like the style of play here in the States, at least from what I've seen, is, and I'm probably going to get slandered for this from other Americans, is more like just direct, fast, and that's not a bad thing, and over the top, physical, extremely physical. And you have to, I haven't really seen, there are some players out there that are really good on the ball, but there are some players, a lot of the players aren't as technically gifted as probably they should be. And I think that comes from the grassroots. And so having that system in the States and having the draft system and the weird trade that I genuinely I've never understood, like, is a lot different than transfers in Europe. I think that's a lot harder to bring in the style of players and the quality of players that you need to bring in to actually qualify and actually like be good like over the course of a season. And I also think the aim of the seasons are a little different. Like we have the playoffs over here, so you really only have to get into, I believe at the time it was maybe 4th place, but now I think it's dropped down to 6th place. So it's a lot different than top 3. And it's a much different mindset. And the players are much different in that mindset as well. But I like what he's done with United. I love the style he's bringing in. I love the freedom that he's talking about with the attacking players. And I liked it even in Orlando when I watched them. It's just I don't think it was the right league to be able to do that because it is a lot more physical. The only criticism I have for Marc, and I agree with what John said, is to maybe make some subs a little bit earlier. Like if you see somebody's not playing very well or has picked up a knock, like they did with Hannah Blundell. Like, she picked up a knock and they took her off at halftime. That's great. Continue doing that. That is the best thing to do. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got.
It's a brilliant topic, and I think again, being from a position where you can actually talk about Orlando, having seen him manage that team and do all those sorts of things, is really helpful. Go on, carry on.
No, I was gonna say really quick. I agree with James, and maybe that's why I really watch my local team. I agree with that. That's why I don't really watch. I'm the closest to the Spirit, and that's why I love watching Man United more than I like watching the Spirit. I agree with that 100%.
Well, that's impressive. Let's just bring that one up so everybody can see what's going on. There we go. And that's why I really watch my local team, Gotham FC. Now, I've got to say, there's so many things in this tweet. So many things. First thing, Gotham. Is Batman?
I don't know. It's in New York.
Every time they've got a home game, they just like send out this big thing to the sky and everybody just comes wandering in like a ball. I was like, yes, we're off to watch the football. It'd be fantastic. Or are you just having a joke?
Whereabouts is Gotham, by the way?
It's in New York, New Jersey.
Oh, I see.
Right in the middle of there. I've been to New York. I never saw Gotham. That's interesting. I might have to go back. But yeah, that's really cool. And also, every time I see your name, I always think of Tina Turner and the Flatbush City Limits. So, but yeah, anyway, I've digressed again. I do that quite regularly. I've picked on James a little bit there. It's good to have you on, James. We love having you here. I've got to pick this one. We're not clinical in front of goal. We've got the best goal difference out of everybody in the league. We are 10 plus 10, and that's the reason
haven't missed a penalty yet. Right,
I'd argue we've done well out. I watched at least 3 of them. It was that one.
What an actual game. Dear me.
I can't believe it. But the point I was getting at with that is that, yes, absolutely, we could have scored more, 100%. But in terms of where we are, John, this is one of those where surely we can sit here and say, I heard it. I heard it in the ground. This is better than we were playing under Stoney. This is better than we were playing under her. He doesn't get the credit, does he? Nobody wants to give him the credit for the fact that we are top of the league. And sorry to just knock that straight off of you, but this was just put. We're top of the league. We should be happy. Why can't we be happy? Why can't we be like Beth and go, do you know what? Skinner's doing a great job. We're top of the league. Fantastic. Why are we so anti? I say we, not us, because we are quite happy with him. But why is there a section that are all anti Skinner?
Yeah, I do get that, and I remember it because obviously we know people who are a bit critical of Skinner. Sometimes it's justified. It's not like the greatest of all time, but he does deserve a bit of credit, and I do think I didn't see the Stoney days that much, so I'll rely on other people to see if it's the best we've ever played. But I do agree that I think we are starting to see a team in Skinner's own image in terms of the players he's brought in and that kind of thing. I think you see a lot of patterns from last season in terms of particularly LSB when we used to dominate games in the first half. We go regularly 2-0, 3-0, 4-0 up at half time at LSV and then we in the second half we game manage it. We don't really go for the big 6, 7, 8-0s, and I think that's the one criticism I would have, that there are times where you're 3-0 or 4-0 up half time. It's like, come on, just get a massive win under your belt. They're there for the taking, and I think it's almost like you almost sap the energy. And this is where I touched on the away games that we tend to start games pretty well on fire. Even at Chelsea last season, in the final game, we played well in the first half. We went for them, but then obviously in the second half, that's for me when we're at our most vulnerable. And I think this is where he needs to get it right for me. We did demonstrate it at West Ham because we were 0-0, and I thought, well, this is the type of game we used to draw last season, But then we got the first goal, and then quickly we got the second goal, and from that point you can then game manage and win the game. And for me, that's where, which Beth mentioned upon, it's about making the changes at the right time when players are hiring, but you don't want to be making a load of subs out, bringing 3 or 4 on, because that can break the momentum. It might be you bring 2 players on the hour mark, you bring another 2 players on after 75 minutes and allow yourselves to keep momentum. That's what the best teams do. And for me, that's where you need to demonstrate improvements, in my opinion. But overall, so far, so good. We do play a good style. We are looking like we could potentially go one step further and hopefully get in the top 3 this season. I know it's only 3 games and, injuries play a part and all that, but it's good to see that we got the solid foundations, but it's a case of whether we keep the momentum going.
The whole criticism about subs is a little bit bizarre to me, because look, I think some people expect subs to be made at the certain time of a game every game. Like, it's like, right, 55 minutes, oh, it's got to make a sub now. It's like, well, he doesn't. If you're cruising in a game and if you're creating loads of chances but not scoring, yeah, you can switch things up, but do you really want to then stop that momentum? Sometimes you could take a player off and then you can stop creating chances. It depends on the game. Sometimes he has made him too late. Last season was certainly a factor in that. But yeah, I agree with both your kind of points. I don't think he'll ever get the credit. Like I said backstage, I think he can win us everything, and there'll still be a section of the fan base. We score 100. However, saying that, I agree with John's point that goal difference might hurt us at the end of the season. That's what we're going to see this year, right? And we're probably going to see it this weekend against Leicester. Teams like City and Chelsea and Arsenal will probably put 7 or 8 past this Leicester side, because that's what the traditional top 3 will do. There'll be games in this season, you'll see City go and win 8-0, you'll see Chelsea win 9-0 or something like that. That's where we need to now get to. We need to get to that level. It doesn't really matter as long as you get the 3 points ultimately, but it might matter towards the end of the season. And I'd like to see us just get to that level, because we're winning games by half time at the minute. Scoring 3-4 in the first half, game's done, or whatever. But I'd like to then see us go and score 6, go and score 7, really go and push and start putting some numbers into our goal difference. I know it's great at the moment. In Lanzo, you put Arsenal and you put 1 past Reading. Indeed, they did. But there'll be games this season where you'll see Arsenal win 5, 6, 7-0. I don't think we might do it. I don't know. But we've not seen that from us yet. But going back to Skinner, I just don't think he'll ever get the credit, because I think people made their mind up when he came over. His record at Birmingham was great. His Orlando record wasn't great. But as Beth, you said there, the league's completely different. I'm not clued up enough to speak about the American league, so I'm not going to. So, yeah, I don't see what the issues are. Certainly at the moment. Criticise the goal difference a little bit. We do need to be a bit more clinical with the chances we're getting. But it's not the end of the world just yet. I'd be a bit more worried if we weren't winning games.
I think I tend to agree with some of what's being said here, but I think, sorry, my laptop's playing all manner of games here, but I think you're right. We should be scoring more goals because we've seen the chances with our own eyes, and we can see, therefore, that the goals potentially should have been scored. But we are top of the league, and as you just heard there from Mystic Connor, we will see Arsenal score 7 or 8 past these and all these. Well, I'm sure there were people, because I remember turning around to Charlie and saying, we're 4-0 up, that puts us 2 goals clear, but Arsenal playing Reading and we spanked them 4-0. So imagine what they're going to do. 1-0. Don't forget they've not got Leo Williamson now. They're injured. So they're in a situation where they've got to start thinking about what they do defensively and how she manages to turn defence into attack by getting that ball forward. I think now's the time, really, genuinely, to start thinking about us as a football team and start lauding what's good about us and thinking a little bit more about how, do you know what, goal difference might well play a big part of what we're doing. But I just genuinely think, like we say, there's only one here. We're dominating games. All of the games that I've seen us play so far, and these are games that would be expected to win. And I think the conversations we've had about teams like Chelsea, all of those sorts of things, we talk about them dominating the game. And we talk about how they create these chances and they score so many more of them. Well, we're better than anybody at that at the moment. We haven't conceded a goal. We've scored more. And I just think that sometimes this is exactly what we're talking about. He's still not getting the credit. He's top of the league with the biggest goal difference. Arsenal haven't played anybody big. They haven't played a Chelsea. They haven't played a Man City. I don't think. I'm pretty sure they haven't done
No, they were meant to play City in the opening game.
So it's not happened. There's been no massive games in the WSL in that respect. So we've all played a similar sort of breed of team. I do agree with you, however, that with Leicester's current problems, expecting our biggest.
You look at a team like Chelsea, they've beaten City, but they did lose to Liverpool. So you got to factor that in as well.
So I think there's a lot there. But Beth, you've heard everybody. We'll put the final word of that to you. That was your topic. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And I also agree with what John said. We need to criticize or not criticize. Judge. That's the word. Thank you for having that in your comment. We need to judge Skinner after this season, and because of all the signings that he brought in. And again, how you bring in players in the States is confusing. And I'm an American. I barely understand it. And you're bringing in most of the time a lot of young players. I'm not saying, and they've played in like a college system. So it is completely different. And I agree with what everyone's saying. And I really, really like the players that he's brought in. And hopefully someday he'll actually get the credit he deserves.
Absolutely. And we shall see. A lot of it will depend on what he does. And how we achieve our goals. And I've got to be honest with you, if you're ticking them off on, need to do that, we've done them all. So we shall see. Big games coming up. It will all kick off at the weekend as we travel to the King Power to see if we can smash Leicester. And by the sounds of things, for him to get any credit, it needs to be at least 90-0. By half time. So we'll see how we get on, won't we?
A goal every 30 seconds.
Exactly that. It's doable. It's doable. We shall see. Listen, guys, it's been a superb show. I want to let everybody go because in about 10 minutes' time, the men will be kicking off and hopefully not right into our cups of tea.
Predictions, Barry.
Sorry?
Predictions.
Oh, thank you. So there's a reason you've redeemed yourself there, John. You've redeemed yourself. Well done. Don't forget to send your predictions in. Don't be forgetful. Send them in. We shouldn't have to chase you. You joined. We didn't hit you with a stick. So, yes, come along. Make sure you send your predictions through. Do feel free. And listen, we've got to get Charlie off the top spot. So can somebody put a bit more effort in, please? Because this is getting really on my nerves having her on the top again. She's insufferable. So help me out. Because otherwise I'm going to have to cheat and just say, oh, you didn't write that correctly. Sorry. So help. Like I would. That would never happen. So yes, getting on the predictions league. Make sure you're doing that. My sincere thanks to everyone. Cheers, everyone in the comments. You've been absolutely brilliant. Well done, John. Go and dry your hair. Beth, excellent work.
It's dry now. It's been dry now.
Oh, it's dry. Look at you. It's like a Herbal Essences advert, that. Anyway, enjoy yourselves. Thank you very much, everyone. It's genuinely been a pleasure. Brilliant fans forum in the end. Let's look forward to another one next week, which will come eventually, but probably after the Durham game because nobody wants to be watching that while we're there. So, ta-da.